I want to give you 5 points for the activist, 5 lessons I have learned, 5 statements I say to myself over and over again in this work of activism and social change. I want to remind you that you are activists, so long as you are intentionally working towards political and social change in your classrooms, and I know so many of you are doing that. And so these things are things that are takeaways, things I want you to keep in your back pocket and to remind yourself when this work gets really hard. So first of all, the first thing we ask ourselves all the time at Fold is, who's missing? Who's missing is the most important question, and we ask it all the time in every area of our work. When we're looking at our lineup of authors, we ask ourselves, who's missing? When we look at our board of directors, when we look at our committees, when we look at our audience, we're asking ourselves who's missing and why. And we're working towards actively fixing that. So if you're a librarian who is curating books, who is setting up displays, this should be a question that's in your pocket all the time. Who's missing, who's missing, who's missing? When you're reading books in your classroom, when you're choosing curriculum, who's missing, who's missing, who's missing? The second thing, and this one works really well with the who's missing question, is how am I doing? This is a question I ask myself all the time. How am I doing? And it's not the test question you think. This for me is a temperature check. How am I doing mentally, physically, spiritually? It is impossible to do this work when you are burnt out and exhausted. So asking yourself, how am I doing, is about registering how your body, your mind, your soul is feeling. It's about giving yourself and your body the things it needs to do the work. It's about putting fuel in the car so that you're not running on empty. Who's missing? How am I doing? The third one we kind of talked about earlier, but I want to remind you of it. It's don't rush good change. Don't rush good change. And this one goes really well with how am I doing, because a lot of times how am I doing, and when we let ourselves get really stressed in this work, it's because we've created some sort of date or deadline or time factor that says it's got to be done by this time, it's got to be done for this person, it's got to be done, it's got to be done, it's got to be done. And that contributes to our how am I doing question. So don't rush good change. It takes a long time, but it's working towards better results. So don't rush yourself, don't be rushed, don't rush. Number 4. This is a really important one too. I say this to myself all the time. This work is never done. This work is never done. This statement is really important, this work is never done, because for some of you that statement makes you feel like, well, what's the point? If it's never done, why start? But the point of it is that with everything we do, there's another thing that we can do after it, and there's another thing that we can do after that. There are always people who are on the outside, and our goal is to bring them inside. So if the work is never done, it also helps you with the don't rush question. It helps you take care of each thing that comes ahead of you as it comes to you, instead of scrambling to do it as though once you've done it, it will be easier. You'll have more rest, you'll have more time. This work takes a long time. This work is never done. The last one is a really important one for teachers. Accept that you will make mistakes. Accept that you will make mistakes. If you are doing this work right, this is a guarantee. You will put a book out there that you think is really great, and you will find that that author is not so great, or that they don't reflect that community, or you'll use a word that you thought was okay and it's not okay. And so understanding that you will make mistakes is an important part of this work, because for me, how you handle mistakes and how you make those feel who have addressed the mistakes is really the key part of the issue. How you make those who've addressed the mistake feel and how you make those who've been harmed by the mistake feel is a key to doing this work right. So, who's missing? How am I doing? Don't rush. This work is never done, and you will make mistakes. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.